this. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to rumble?
Connected.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fine Scale, or the live build show for November. We're a little late this week. We were supposed to do that the first part of the week, but chasing the almighty buck gets in the way of us all the time in our hobby. The joy of being retired the more I get into model railroading, the more excited about retirement I start to think about, although I'm still quite a few years away from that realistically. Let's get through a couple of the housekeeping chores. So next week's Joe's trade room show will be canceled for this month. I'm sure he's in the same situation as I am, and life gets in the way. We're busy, especially with him getting ready to be a father. His show, Joe's trade room show for December, was originally scheduled for the 18th, but we're going to advance that one by a week. So Joe's trade room will be on the 11th of December. Look forward to that show, but that will be Joe's last show for a number of months as he goes on paternity leave. We're contractually obligated to give him that time off, and he's earned it anyway. And, right, no pay, as Johnny says. We have to make sure we clarify. There's no pay if you take a break. There's no pay. So, and I get docked every time I delay a show. So, thank gosh it's a percentage based dock, which works okay for us. Today's
a freebie for you.
Yes, it's a freebie. I could have, would have been eligible for some percentage-based raise, but any percentage of zero is still pretty close to zero. The best I remember from my math. So they keep talking about percentages. I want numbers. Leave that percentage off, and we'll talk about it. But
yep.
Anyway, and then next Thursday, which would have been tonight's show with Johnny's room, but next Thursday we're going to bring the Johnny's trade room talk into alignment with all the other time schedules. So every show we have will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, as opposed to Johnny said it started at 10 p.m. Next Thursday that'll starting at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So every show we have will start at 9 p.m. Unless we have a special show or case where we deal with a European or foreign participant where we have to adjust schedules. Otherwise, 9 p.m. is normally pretty good for us. I'm not always home by 9 p.m., but
the poor guys on the West Coast, they'll be watching at 6 o'clock.
Time's a struggle for this stuff. It's difficult. That's why we've done some of these shows like we did the View series as pre-recorded content. Part of the reason for that is it's just impossible to get enough people together at whatever time you try to put together. Lloyd was participating in tonight's show, but the schedule is just so difficult for everybody.
Right.
And I was going to do my show from on the road. I had to be on the road this week. Thankfully, I'm back home in my massive workshop, and I'm happy to be so. But I had to go meet with federal examiners at one of my banks, and I could not talk them into delaying their examination based on my hobby. I did try, guys. So don't think I left you in the dark. I tried. I was going to do my show from the hotel, and I had my traveling kit because I did do a little bit of work, a little bit of modeling. It's a good thing about working on rolling stock and such as that is it's pretty compatible with traveling. It's kind of hard to do scenery in a hotel room. Although I have heard stories of like Rod Stewart takes modules with him or something and rents a second hotel room.
Not anymore. Not anymore. They announced today that after 22 years, Rod Stewart's layout is complete. So I don't know what the hell he's going to do now when he's on the road.
Layout being complete, like Jack Burgess, he's claimed his layout was complete for a number of years. And, we all talk about, the idea of a layout being complete. Everybody says no layout's ever complete. And that's mostly true. But there are a few of them. Like Jack Burgess says, his layout's complete. It's done. Every detail, everything is done. There's nothing he wants to do different or going to do different, I suppose, to his layout. He has some additional rolling stock that he's building or something, but I've been watching his TSG multimedia series that he's been doing. He's done a dozen part series or something over the last year. It's been really good. It's a good series. Jack Burgess is an interesting modeler.
Yeah.
But it's spectacularly rare to hear somebody say their layout is actually genuinely complete. I mean, I can't imagine that you'd hear somebody like George Selio say that even. And his layout looks pretty complete, I think, at this point. But which mine's been I've been going through a bunch of shifts with mine lately too. I've been that's been part of my modeling challenge. This whole summer I've been going through like an existential crisis. I think if I'm saying that correctly. Keep in mind I'm from East Kentucky, so you guys are lucky I speak as good English as I do. So a bit of a crisis over what I wanted to do with it. I was not getting the reliable performance that I wanted. Um, Trying to do the scale or semi-scale stuff, I just wasn't happy with it. Um, I just couldn't get things to look the way I want and to run reliably. The steam locomotives are beautiful, like Broadway Limited steam locomotives. I despise the decoders in them. I hate whatever decoders Broadway Limited's using. QSI is what they used to be, and whoever's making them, I just dislike their decoders considerably. I think their locomotives are spectacular, beautiful, but they're horribly inconsistent. Very hard to design something that's because my layout has always been designed around kind of taking you right to the edge of what's possible. So I weight my cars like stupid heavy. Mike Confalone, Mike Rose does now. Joe Fugate's talked about doing that too. This super overweighting, 13 ounces or so for a car. Recently, I was reading Mike Rose. That's something interesting. The Allagash Railroad has just recently published a public Facebook page dedicated to the railroad. So anybody who loves that railroad like I do, definitely got to participate and join that group because that's good stuff. The Allagash is a spectacular railroad. And Mike Rose's explanation to somebody on there about the weight standard was pack as much lead as you can possibly fit in there. That's basically where it comes to with weight. So I'm running like 25, 26 to 28 cars, 25 to 30 cars. And it's right at the edge of possible that two locomotives can get them up the grade. One absolutely definitively cannot. And that's the goal, that it should be a job to get it to the top of the grade. What I found in doing a lot of testing, and so my staging and everything is all on a grade. There's not a level stick of track on the railroad. I mean, there's one little level stick right here that has, going behind my server rack, that has a programming track on it. And I think that's the only level piece of track on the railroad is that 5 feet going across the workbench there. There's not, even the staging is on a 2% grade all the way through staging. I've had people ask me if that was going to be a problem, but it's true staging. Like you're never going to see in any of my staging that's 2% grades as it climbs around the layout. You're never going to see rolling stock just sitting there. They're not fiddle yards, they're not storage yards, they're staging yards. They're complete trains. They're out somewhere else in the world, running, headed toward the part of my layout that is visibly modeled. So there's not loose equipment there. So 2% is not bothering me having that grade. But what I found in testing, where I could actually watch it right here in staging and mess with it as it runs around this room on a 2% grade, is that some of the time it goes exactly the way I want, climbs like a champ, goes right up through there. Other times it absolutely will not do it, and it's inconsistent as to when or why it does it. I thought it may have had something to do with back EMF, like it was pulling down the voltage on the decoders. I've tried turning all those features off. Granted, I'm still using the stock QSI, Broadway Limited, or whoever, Broadway Limited decoders. Maybe I need to go ahead and replace the ESU decoders, but that's not easy. Me and Ralph have talked about that. Actually, all of us, TM, Ralph, several of us have talked about that a lot, how I'm going to deal with it. Because I think I'm going to have multiple decoders, multiple speakers, and it's just a complicated thing to get, and to try to get the sound right. It's just really complicated. Maybe it's a decoder problem, but I turned all that stuff off on the decoder, and it was still incredibly inconsistent as to when it performed correctly. There's times when two locomotives just flat don't want to go. They don't want to. I mean, even throttling them independently on two separate devices, they They don't want to work in cohesion with each other. They want to put too much slack into the trade. And I think on the helix, it would cause it to derail because I'm just shoving around one curve through the staging here, and it was putting it in a bind that made me uncomfortable. So I was frustrated with that. And I do love the scale stuff, Proto 87 or Proto 48, the true two scale proportions of wheels and flanges and couplers and all that, the way it operates. I love that stuff. I basically had to give up on some of that stuff. And for a while, and me and Ralph and Tim and others, we've talked about that, I really, really, really wanted to go to O-scale. And I've got a little bit of O-scale 2-rail equipment. And I bought a few more pieces here recently, just as an experiment, just as I was thinking through it and trying to get over my frustration. So I just can't go to O-scale because I just can't get there from here. I just don't have enough room to really do that any justice to do the type of class 1 modeling I want to do. I've got plenty of room. A person could totally do an O-scale 2-rail, do a great layout that they would thoroughly enjoy in the space I have, if what they thoroughly enjoyed was a switching layout or a branch line or some terminus or whatever, something different. But what I like is road trades and helpers and, big commodity trades of coal and ballast, wood products. I just don't enjoy the industrial style switching as much. I do. I like it, just not as much. So O-scale's just still just out of the question. So I've got to stick with HO scale. Another thing that's kind of drove it, I have to firmly plan it at Ralph's feet, is the more I've watched Ralph's work with weathering, the more excited I've got about some of the weathering techniques that are applicable in the, say, mid to late 60s up through today that are not that prevalent in my era. In my era, there was still some wood, which weathers quite differently or not much at all. The railroad, or in the 1950 era that I had been targeting. They also maintained their equipment quite well, so you didn't see as much of that really cool weathering effect I love. And most of the steel equipment was relatively new, so you just didn't get to see it. And then especially with the locomotives, where the weathering really shines, the stuff that Ralph's done with locomotives that I think we're all somewhat envious of, you just don't see that stuff until you get up into the late 60s at least, which I used to model 68 or 69 or something in that era. So what I think I've decided kind of my second favorite era is the 1985, 86, 87, 88 kind of period when the mergers, the East Coast or Appalachian mergers were all coming together. So, I was going to do that in O-scale. Previously, I'd been thinking about doing that in O-scale 2-rail because I can't afford to buy steam locomotives in O-scale. $2,500 a locomotive. If you need 10 of them to operate a railroad, realistically, you're talking about the price of an automobile. So that's impractical. So I thought about an O-scale if I could be happy with that second favorite era, SD40s and, a few RS3s still left around, a few covered wagons still left around. There's a little bit of first generation diesel, but your third generation is firmly coming into the fray. And I've watched Ralph's weathering stuff, and then I've watched Scale Trades and Rapido, and come out with Scale Trades just released the C39, and that was kind of a particular locomotive for that era that I grew up in that late 80s era, when the Norfolk Southern became the Norfolk Southern. The C39 was the first fleet of locomotives that they bought in Norfolk Southern livery. And Scale Trades has that locomotive in their rivet cutter series, and it's gorgeous. Just it's spectacularly gorgeous. So, and it put a little bit of weathering on it because it'll be brand new, but a little bit of weathering on it, a fuel stain or something, and you really have something. And I can continue to use just about everything I have because there's very little rolling stock that I bought that would not still be running. There is some, but there's not a lot that would still be running 85, 86. And Ralph's convinced me that it's possible, while talking to other people about this same thing, that it's possible to kind of have multiple eras and switch them out, change maybe a few details. Maybe you have a building or two that you have to swap, but for the most part, rolling stock.
20 or 30 years is not unreasonable.
Right, and that's
in between, right?
Right. I mean, but in the late 80s that I'm talking about, pretty much every structure that was there in the late 80s had already been built by the 50s. The Appalachian seen its heyday. Right, that's right. It's still pretty much still there. There's a few buildings, especially railroad buildings, the old wood buildings, the water towers, that I've already built, the signal tower and stuff, all of which I've already built because they're railroady and awesome to build. I've already built all those buildings for my layout. None of those are usable in the 80s period, but I built most of them on little diorama bases. So I'm just going to make a replacement piece of diorama, basically, to set in place. One that has some, piles of ties and a little ballast pile and stuff, and the other one that has the section house on it. Same thing for the water towers. And if and when I can get steam equipment to run predictably the way I need it to perform the style of operation I want, because, and I'll come back to another part in just a minute about that, but for now I could swap those out with other structures, and I'll be able to swap those interchangeably and change, the vehicles, the highway vehicles on the road.
Right.
Change a few of those out, stick a couple other vehicles. For the most part, everything else is mostly the same. And I could switch back and forth between those eras.
A few different locos, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. And much of the rolling stock, because in 1950, the railroads, if you were trying to model 1930 and 1960, those are very far apart, even though it's still just 30 years. But in technology, they were very far apart. In 1950, the Norfolk Southern or Norfolk Western in 1950 had built the new coal hoppers that I've already bought quite a few of. Those were still in use in 87, but they just built them in 1950, just past World War II.
Well, I don't know why this happens. I just put another link in. This is to Rod Stewart's layout, and it doesn't come up as an HTTP, like a link. All the wording is there. All you have to do is cut and paste and put it in your browser. In the meantime, I can share that same thing that I have on. So after 26 years, veteran rocker finally lets the world see his breathtaking completed model railroad, 124-foot spread depicting an entire U.S. city, inspired by the view from his childhood home.
Ralph, I don't even see it in the chat.
No?
Not on YouTube.
Huh. All right. Let me go back. I'll stop sharing. I'll go back. Share it again. Did that come up? Right. So you're seeing the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're seeing that, but where you posted the link into the chat room,
yeah,
your message is not there.
It is for me. It's just not a link.
And it's not showing it at all in the actual chat.
Okay.
For anybody else. I've got Dwight's message and then Adrian's message, where yours is right in the middle between the two. I don't have yours.
Okay. Well, here's the pictures. Like it's spectacular what he's done, and most of this stuff he's done while he's been on the road. And you can bet your bottom dollar that every one of those locos is a brass loco. Yep. This is New York. And when he was a kid, he was back and forth with his parents, back and forth to New York.
Yeah, there's a nice little write-up on it about him being His original inspiration was the British Railways, but he loved the American railways.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Now, there's been a few other write-ups about him over the years too, and a couple models.
Well, he's been in Model Railroader magazine.
Model Railroad Craftsman.
Computers are so annoying.
You've had 3 different articles, three different spreads, not the entire layout. I don't think. It was the first time for the entire layout.
Yeah, it was.
You can tell that's an older picture because of how young he looks there.
So when he goes into a hotel, he rents 3 or 4 rooms, or he gets 3 or 4 rooms, and one of them is his modeling room.
Andy, you're froze again, by the way.
Okay.
I was saying that was going to be part of our topic tonight was auto railroading on the road. Andy's having technical problems, so we'll find out more when he gets back. What did they say about mechanics? Mechanics' vehicles never work. Carpenter's house is never complete. Apparently, an IT guy's computer never works. Yeah. Sorry, I was snacking on something. Am I?
Am I still okay? His hard drive just died last week. SD hard drive.
There, my back, Tony. I mean, we can talk about travel kits, I guess, because I've got one assembled that I take with me whenever I go for training for work. It's a modeling kit that I have assembled. That I take on work trips. I use a Stanley toolbox, small Stanley toolbox. I've suggested that you use tackle boxes, fishing tackle boxes for it also. But this box has got several little storage compartments on top. So I've got wheel sets, coupler boxes. I got some Katy couplers. I actually got some ground boots, ground throws, magnets, soldering stand, extra hobby blade, number 11 blades, my Katy track coupler height gauges. And I'll throw a piece of sectional track in here if I plan on working on a car. I got some pipettes, a pencil, a Sharpie, tweezers, hobby knife, solder, razor blades. There he's back. My Katy trip pin tool.
That's a good way to do it. I know we looked at those the other night when I think I'm going to have to buy, because when I was carrying, I ended up carrying I carried like 2 or 3 of these with me, and then a few, and like a little box of tools, but it's all kind of separate.
Plano makes a fishing tackle. It's called a lure box.
Yeah.
Has about 4 or 5 of those as trays in a big case.
And that you can take them out.
Yes.
Andy Roy with those. They got 2 different sizes. They got the small ones, or they got one that's a bigger box. So we use them at work for actually carrying some of our specialty tools in.
Well, right now what I'd like to be able to, for it to go in my largest piece of luggage, because then I can fly with it. But when I do travel like that, I often take at least a small kit of stuff, because I am stuck late at night sometimes in a hotel and you want to be able to work on stuff. And you can do that with, like, I can basically fit all the tools I need to work on a freight car with it basically the size of a freight car box.
As long as you're not doing painting.
Yeah.
No question. I don't know that you could. I can't imagine. You could weather, of course, especially with many of the techniques you've showed us. You could do that on the road, I feel like. You still have to take quite a bit of stuff.
I take a bunch of stuff with me. It's a little fishing tackle box with the one tray in it. Except I don't put the tray in. Everything's in the box. I got my weathering powders, the AIM and Bragdon, no pan pastels. Whatever paints I need for the time.
Yep.
And brushes, and I always have a hobby knife and a pair of tweezers.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you're not going to do like mainstream painting on the road. I mean, I don't know. I travel. I stay at fine, nothing spectacularly upscale, but just fine regular hotels. I go try to roll a paint booth in there. I'm not sure the results I get.
They're gonna start.
There's all my brushes.
That's a good way to do it.
All in a zip.
I found these at Menards, and they're actually from Midwest Products.
Really, Menards carries it.
Hobby Square. Yep.
Yeah.
Little Hobby Ski Square. They've got the plastic miter box.
But I did trees on the road once. I worked in Atlanta, but I drove to Atlanta. Atlanta's right at the edge of where I'm willing to drive versus fly. And I took like a baker's box full of sagebrush and built sagebrush trees. But I was down there for like 4 days or something, 4 or 5 days. I mean, I think my wife went with me that time. I can't remember, but I sat and made trees in the hotel.
Like next week, next month I'll be gone for about a week for training for. So I'll pack this and maybe a hobby kit or 2 to take with me. Then I've got flush cutters in here. Got some electrical stuff in case I decide to work on some other electrical stuff. I got some paint brushes, a cardboard back ruler.
See, my box doesn't have all that in it because I only take what I need for that project for that moment.
Yeah.
Because when I was doing it, I was working at the store, and you had to deal with customers as well. So sometimes you didn't even get a chance to do anything, but at least you could open it up and
some of them I'm throwing in here just because so I know where it's at.
Yeah.
We got files, couple files, small file sets in here. Hobby sandpapers.
Well, that's what I've been doing too, is just packing the stuff up when I do travel. I don't travel like all the time necessarily, so I don't have to think too terribly much about it. I just pack up what I need when I am traveling. I would like to have a bit of a separate case for that, but there's just some things that are very conducive to traveling. Building freight car kits, which I'm kind of been in the kick of here lately anyway, especially as resin kits, are just very conducive to work while traveling. I mean, you need a couple super glues and, you know,
Like
tweezers.
last work trip I took an engine and a decoder with me and installed a decoder while I was in the hotel room.
Who did we lose? Me?
No, I think we lost Andy again.
Just Andy. Okay. Because you went silent too.
But I took soldering iron and solder and flux and stuff like that, and I put decoders and LED lights in an engine while I was in the hotel room. The biggest problem you have is transporting the model back when you do get it complete.
So Brian W says I use a Stanley stackable trays, black and yellow, with a bunch
Yeah.
of cord wrapped around the hand cart. Adrian Gadsden. Anytime I took my stuff on the road, after I got into the room, I ate, I took a shower, he was ready to go to bed. And Doug Birch, he uses a Craftsman Versatech to keep his parts and tools in the drawers. It's perfect size for N scale.
Yeah.
Andy Crawford says the stupid machine I just redid it last weekend, and it's run all week. Now all of a sudden it's doing this.
Well, we'll see you run naked. Have a good night. Now, if I'm planning on working on like electronics projects, I've got some of these kits here that came in these boxes. That's what they came in.
You've got what in the box?
IC chip.
Oh, I thought you said paint.
No, electronic components. These are actually the Radio Shack version of the make kits. But these would work great for holding paints and weathering powders. I mean, they're deep enough to hold. It holds some of your Tamiya paints, maybe. But yeah, tackle boxes work great. Back when I was working or doing some minor computer repair on my own, I have a tackle box full of computer repair parts back here that I use. Those double fold open tackle boxes.
The clamshell?
Yeah. And then I've got a small Dremel that packs away pretty well into that kit too. So it all depends on what I'm doing, on what I actually make sure I pack. But sometimes I pack a little extra with me, just in case I decide I want to do something else while I'm on the road.
One of the big things I use are these, and I'll use this when I'm working on scratch build projects, or if I'm working on a locomotive that's in parts, are these plastic shoe boxes that you can get from Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing, like especially if you're working on more than one thing, you can keep them separate and still have them accessible, and you can see what's in them.
That's where me and Edie were talking the other day. I found these at Menards. They're a Plano box. And they're Pro Latch, what they call the Pro Latch series. And they are big enough. I've got 4 locomotives in one box.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're tier 4s and an SD70.
And it's funny because Fast Tracks makes a wooden laser cut box for your rolling stock. And the last time I was at his shop, I went to visit him. I said to him, Tim, can you make one for locomotives, please? Instead of having them going this way in the box, turn it so that I can put my longer locomotives in across the length of the box. And I said, is there any possibility? He says, not in the future. So that box that you came up with is ideal.
Well, there's a company that makes boxes for hauling equipment called Equipment Hauler.
Yeah, but they're cardboard.
And they're expensive cardboard. Like,
it's because they're specifically designed with compartments in them and foam.
Yep, and they sell a canvas bag, so you could take a couple fairly lengthy trains to a modular meet with them. They are interesting, but man, that seems like a lot of money for a cardboard box. I mean, $60 or $70 for a cardboard box when you need to drop $400 or $500 to have carry a train to a show with.
And if anybody has done any work on their locomotives, painted or weathered or dull coated or whatever, and you pack them away, don't use this stuff. It will leave an imprint on the side of the paint.
Or
If
any
you want to use this, wrap a paper towel or a shop towel around the locomotive first.
Or shirt box tissue.
Yeah. Just separate it from this. Because the chemicals in this seem to react with some of the paints. And these are always off-gassing, this plastic shit.
Yeah.
The foam I found is actually, I bought it from Walmart, and it's seat cushion foam back in the craft section. Or pillow foam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has cells in it. It's not as substantial of cells as you get with other types of foam, but it does have a bit of cells. I think I'd still wrap a piece of paper around it just to keep it from transferring any of its texture.
Yep.
It comes in different thicknesses, different densities.
And as the old saying goes, don't ask me how I know.
But you get
takes getting burnt once to figure that out.
I've got that too, but I use it to make rocks on my layout.
Yeah, that is the craziest thing I ever seen was the boulders made with that stuff.
I cut this up to down in the script to fit inside the boxes. That's what I use to hold the locomotives in the box. Now, if
that piece of black foam that had the ribs on it?
Yeah, that's what I use.
That's better foam than that.
That's what I use for working on with.
But that piece of foam with the ribs in it is better foam. It's more inert than that is.
Oh, yeah, I use the same thing you're talking about. I made for doing I made a little weathering station out of that closed cell kind of foam or whatever. The packing, it's got all my basic weathering stuff in it. And, no trucks on chopsticks, and put a little slit in it. Little slit you can stick all your little weathering brushes in.
That's the one.
This is what he's talking about, Andy.
Yeah, acoustic.
Well, it's
foam.
not sound. You find a lot of electronics come packed with that, and the box is lined with it.
Right, that's what this is. This is like that too. It's that tight density. It's kind of slightly slick, like that black foam is a bit.
These two foams are very similar foam.
Yeah, mine is like the white.
It's the green floral foam.
Oh yeah, this isn't like the floral foam. I like that white stuff. That's like the floral foam, man. That is spectacular for scenery purposes. It's just expensive.
The white stuff I got is not floral foam either. It's just a thinner version of this, and it's just white instead of green. This is a soft, squishy
Oh yeah, much. This is much harder. This foam that I built a couple. I built a locomotive. You know, kind of. I mean, it's the same foam that they use for those little caddies that like Cotto or whatever sells. I think Cotto's the one who sells that little chassis.
Um, this here is where I used to lay my rolling stock on when I'm working on it, so I'm not laying it down on a hard surface.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I've got a little caddy made out of that one for working on a locomotive. If I'm doing some of the detail parts or electrical or cleaning wheels or something, it's great. But if I'm weathering something, I know that kind of foam soaks up powders and crap like that. So that harder surface, plus that's washable. I can take those little, the little cells of powders and stuff, of aid powders and bragging powders that I've got stuck in there, kind of a couple little containers of liquid. And, this has got a little oil colored paints and stuff that I can stick down in little compartments. But that's slick enough that I can throw that in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Or I can sure wash it because it's slick.
Weathered or whatever, I would probably wrap them in like tissue paper or something like that to separate them from the foam.
Yep.
But they're not stored out in the heat and direct sunlight, so I don't have to worry about that foam reacting with the plastic. Like normally you have an issue with, if they're stored for a long time, the foam will actually start to react with the plastic and melt to it.
Well, see, most of those foam rubbers break down. If you've ever touched an old brass kit, a Tinshoto kit from the 60s or 70s, man, the foam is powder.
The foam is ridiculous.
Yes, it turns in. It's soft originally, yellow or whatever foam, and then years later, it comes out like the florist foam in little chunks.
Or like sand.
Absolutely, it comes out in pieces. It's quite awful, and that's why you'll see a lot of brass kits that the boxes aren't available anymore because the locomotive will last 60 or 70 years, and even the locomotives built in the 60s were great brass locomotives. I mean, they didn't run worth a crap, but detail wise, accuracy wise, mechanically, they're quite good. With new motors and electronics, they're tune them up. They're really nice locomotives, but you're not going to find original boxes to them. The boxes just didn't last.
Yeah.
Well, it's like like on the fishing tackle, there's those baits and stuff that they would eat the rubberized plastic or whatever the tackle was made out of, like your rubber worms and stuff. They would eventually eat into the tackle box.
Huh. Yeah, it's as a chemical.
The plastics these locomotives are made out of and that foam, eventually they'll start attacking each other.
So the brass locomotives, the worst ones for that were the ones that were enameled. Well, it's not enameled. They put a clear coat on them. The ones that they leave in natural brass, they're the ones that are the worst for it. If they've been factory painted, they're not as bad.
Yeah.
So it does have something to do with that. I mean, the paint, it's still just clear coat. It's still just paint.
I've seen that happen on some older rolling stock. My dad had a store. He'd pull them out of the box, and the plastic, the foam that they were packed in, was actually stuck to the model. And when you tried to get it off, the paint job was ruined.
Yeah. Most brass locomotives or whatever vehicles that you get that are brass, the older ones, when they were originally packaged, they were packaged with a piece of polyethylene on it.
Yeah.
And that was fine because it separated them from the foam. So the paint and the foam didn't have a chance to interact. So the first guy that opens it up and takes the cello off, he doesn't even think about it. He puts it back without.
Yeah.
And it sits in the box, sits in this, as Steve Atwell says, it goes back into its coffin and dies because it sits on a shelf.
Especially true of the old brass, because so many of those old guys back there were collectors of that stuff. So,
well, I have a brass locomotive by Van Hobbies. It's still in its original brass state. I had to rebuild the box, the foam in the box, because it was all deteriorated.
yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen any of those, that are more than 20 years old that I've ever seen the original foam. None of them lasted. I don't care how well you take care of it; it just breaks down. Now, material sciences have got a lot better. And honestly, the best packing material you can do is this clear, basically the acetate or clear stuff that you buy, a tool in at the store that a lot of us chop up to make windows and stuff with. That's a great material if you could form that. The problem is the equipment that we buy, it's quite snug, and after we put details on it, weather and all that, it'd be too snug to hold it. But if you could mold that plastic or modify it so that it would hold the equipment as little as it touches it, a fairly light touch, that would be the best way to carry it. But
I mean, probably the best way to store them is back in their original factory box, the original way they were packed. But
if they'll fit,
they'll fit, and a lot of we're hauling quite. If you're traveling to a show, or whatever, you're hauling quite a bit of rolling stock with you when you're traveling to a show.
Then you end up with this problem.
Yeah, the box.
Here's an old box. The box is actually falling apart. The cello that was on the front of it is all ripped all to rat shit. So
yeah.
The original box, it's okay, but it's not.
No, in those boxes, those cardboard boxes per se, it's the. Let's see if I can think of what's a good example.
The scale trains operator or rivet counter series and be your best.
Yeah, because they have the clear acetate molded in a shape that you slide this clear acetate tray out of the box that is holding the piece of equipment. That would be the most ideal way.
And it has little foam pads that's suspended in the middle of this thing.
Right, but you could replace those little pads.
Like an Athearn Genesis box.
Yeah. What's inside of it? What holds the? Is it foam or?
Like I was telling Tom earlier, I have the box from Rapido. I hate these new boxes because they're so bloody tight. You can't get them apart. You can't get them open.
Well, it has thumbs on the long side, like little thumb spots, thumb knockouts.
Well, the thing is, the box is so wide that you can just barely grab it.
Yeah.
If it was a little bit narrower, it would work fine.
Yeah,
I know, but they make them so tight fitting to start with. I mean, there's lots of room in there that they could have cut this whole half-inch or whatever off the bottom here.
I just realized this box has still got wipers and sunshade in it for an SD70 M that I've got sitting here.
But I'm having to get caught up again on what's available from the vendors in the era that I'm looking at moving to that I am moving to the 87, 88 era. I am definitely going to order one of those scale trains locomotives right away. Rapido's got some really good stuff too. That's another thing is that the era I'm looking at now that's where all the exciting stuff is happening in the hobby right now. 80s through today, all the exciting stuff is happening in that space.
But the problem that I found with some manufacturers, Rapido being my top of the list, they'll make a locomotive, they'll take orders for it before they make it, and if they don't get the number of pre-orders, they won't build it. If they do get the number of pre-orders and you didn't order it and the store didn't order any extras, you're sweet out of luck. Because they don't do a second run. Whereas scale trains, one of SD40, and I forget what the other engine is, that they said they will be making until 2025.
Yeah.
They still do mainly on pre-order, and they order a few extras at a time, but it's mainly pre-order.
But you can't get the Southern and Norfolk and Western ran high hoods, and they run them long nose forward. There's a different and particular configuration of both Southern and the Norfolk and Western, and of course the Norfolk Southern carried on with. So all the locomotives that I need are not standard SD40s. They're slightly unique. Scale Trains made that locomotive perfectly, but it's completely unavailable. I mean, there is, it was a year ago too. I mean, they just came out with it. Even the C39-8 that they just announced it just came out with, there's none of them in stock with DCC. There's like 3 numbers that are available in DCC ready. So I don't know. That's a tough business these days. And
well, they also just announced the SD45s.
Yeah.
Yes. But they announced them in like 4 or 5 road names. Like, I probably will buy one of those in the Atlantic coastline or Seaboard coastline, whichever one they built it in, because that was a member of the what became the CSX. I'll buy one,
You know how to
maybe.
paint. You know how to
Sure,
paint.
I do, but most of the railroads that I operated didn't operate that way. The SD40 is the mainstay of the 80s. I mean, that was the mainstay locomotive was SD40. The first locomotive I ever had as a kid that wasn't a Tyco or a Lifelike, and not Lifelike Proto 2000 stuff, but the
And
Tyco
chances
line.
are microscale is going to make the decals for you, the decals.
But eventually, this operator series box, eventually this cellophane is going to break loose.
In that box, but they have the boxes where what I'm saying is that the box is the box. And what I want is a box like what Ralph had from Rapido, albeit it's slightly tight, but I get that. But or like the Genesis, I want a full-fledged box with a shiny wrapper on it so that it can be wiped slightly and keeps moisture from soaking into it and stuff. So that's the perfect box. And then inside of it, it needs that clear sellotape material or whatever acetate material that is slightly or loosely formed to the piece of rolling stock or locomotive. That way, it doesn't touch it all over the place. It's not a snug fit. It doesn't need to be a snug fit. It's just to keep it from banging around.
The wheel sets is what they do. They hold them by the wheels, almost so.
Well, that's the perfect arrangement because that lasts 100 years. I mean,
Actually,
lasts longer than I care about.
It's not by the wheels. The scale trains and oh geez, I can't think of the other name now. Fox Valley. They make it so that
Fox Valley.
the whole car is suspended above the bottom piece of plastic. The whole locomotive. So it's not sitting
That right there. Who is that one? Who made that locomotive?
Rapido.
Okay, that's a spectacular case. Spectacular. I mean that you could store that locomotive in that case, and in 100 years, the case would still be pretty good.
Yeah.
Plastic of the locomotive might be struggling, but should last. That's a good design.
Let me get my Reddit counter rock here.
You would think that all these companies would have learned.
The rivet counter box and the operator series boxes are totally different. The internals of the box are the same, but pretty much. All right. So these are both Tier 4 GEVOs boxes. One's a rivet counter, one's an operator series. All right. So here's the operator series.
And it has the cellophane inside of it, just like what I'm saying I would prefer.
Well, it's got.
Yeah, not the lid. I'm talking about down inside it where the thing actually sits in it. You could actually put a piece of cardboard in the top of that box if you wanted to keep UV from getting to it.
And then the box itself, got the locomotive packed in. Packed in like Ralph was showing.
Yep. That lasts 100 years. That's the perfect material.
And then they've got these little brackets in here. And there's some little strips of plastic to separate the locomotive.
They put them under the trucks, right?
That clip on the wheel sets.
Yeah.
And they're usually stuck to the bottom of this box to hold the locomotive up off the plastic. But they're clipped onto the wheel set. Now the box does clamp over the top of the locomotive, but there's rubber strips in this packaging. And that's what this cellophane material is for here. Is to separate the rubber strip from touching the locomotive.
That's a good design. That works for me.
They did, on their locomotives, they definitely did a really good job on their packing materials. They did their their due diligence and research. that. Now the rivet counter series box is a little different. A little bit bigger box. It's foam packed. You know, again, the same type of foam that I'm pretty much using on everything.
What did they use what did they call, what's the highest end series, that museum quality? The Big Blow is the only thing they made in that? Did that come in a wood box? And
Yeah, I believe so. It comes in a wooden box.
yeah, that was really
Yeah, but that's also almost $1,000.
right. But I mean, if you're going to try to compete with a collectible like a brass locomotive that you expect to last a long time, that's the unfortunate thing about a brass locomotive is you could drop $2,000 on a brass locomotive easily, more. I mean, some of those kind of locomotives are $5,000 and $6,000, and then you can't even expect the box to last 20 years. So if you put it in a wood box with cellophane inlay like that,
Yeah.
You see, like the interior of the box, the rivet counter, or the actual what wraps locomotive with the rivet counter and the operator series is the same setup. But the boxes are a little nicer than the rivet counter. The freight cars, not so much.
well, one of the things that makes Scale Trades the company they are is the range of products they have. So I expect that there's some variance from
And the
from
price,
one to another.
Oh yeah, you can't beat their prices right now.
pricing is amazing.
Well, I mean, the choices. I mean, if you want to spend $80 on an auto rack, $70, whatever, on an auto rack that has all the details, which is, I only need one or two auto racks given by ear, especially those closed auto racks. They were brand new in 86 or 87, probably, I think.
Yeah, but
I
if
only
it's the
buy
right,
one or
if
two.
it's the right ones, you can take the side panels off.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
well, and the ones that I want to run, the auto racks I'm going to run, and not many of them even, I'm only going to run a few auto racks, period, is the ones that have the sides on them but no roof on them. That is what I seen, in a lot of the pictures in the 80s. And then you see some of them with the roof on it. Now, you cannot buy the operator series in the late model, or all you can get is the late model in the operator series. You can't buy the early model like what I need. But I only need a couple auto racks, one, two of those. So I'll buy the high end series. But you've got the choice. If you want to put a 60 car trade for the modular club together of auto racks, buy the operator series. That's a no brainer.
This is what I was looking for.
So there's that Rapido that's been weathered.
These two here are basically the same car. One's
It doesn't
operator
have the
series.
railings on it yet.
The trucks are awesome, different than anything else I've ever seen you do. I think maybe something different about it in the trucks. I really like them. It's got a really light rust effect that I'm really fond of.
But here on the regular rolling stock on the scale trains, these two are both basically the same car, basically. Same model. One's rivet counter, one's operator series. Yeah, they got different road numbers, but the boxes are virtually the same.
I'm just a big fan of having choice. Whatever that means, having choice is a good thing.
Yeah. I've got, I probably way over ordered on those auto racks because as soon as those come out, I was like, ooh, I'm getting some of those.
Already pre-ordered stuff. Yeah, they are beautiful.
Yeah.
And I will too because they are beautiful. And since I only need one or two, I'll probably buy the rivet cutter series. But if I needed a dozen of them, I'd buy the operator series.
Well, I got like three. I pre-ordered 3 or 4 of the operator series, or the rivet counter series, and then 3 or 4 of the operator series.
All right.
Went a little overboard.
Yeah. That's a joy. There's amazing stuff coming out. Well, that's kind of part of the reason that I've headed toward the direction. Thankfully, I'll still be able to use the rolling stock, so I've carried on while I've been thinking through this process, carried on working through resin equipment, which is what I've been working on tonight. I needed to get some trucks and couplers on these that I've got. I'm getting close to having these ready to paint. Well, not this one, but this one's an odd one. Trying to figure out how to figure out the truck assembly for this is going to be a little bit tricky. I didn't explain much while I was working through it, but there's a little bit of a finesse to getting trucks and couplers on racing cars. Actually, it's probably one of the more challenging things I was challenged with.
Now, some of the packaging that I don't like is the way Walther's packed some of theirs in the expanded foam. This stuff just breaks.
And it damages weathering and stuff like that too. Also, and most of the time they're relatively tight.
And this stuff will attack a locomotive after so long.
Yeah, it's got chemicals in it, of course. I mean, it is a chemical. It basically is a chemical. It's a petroleum product.
So you have to wrap it in plastic. And of course, it's the standard. Yeah, for so many times getting out of the box.
I like wrapping them and I like wrapping them in the tissue paper, in the white tissue paper. I mean, there's a chance it's going to do something, but it doesn't have a texture that it's going to leave. It's not a petroleum product. The only risk you have with the paper is if you leave it in there a long time, it may stick to it. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't had that happen, but that's just the off chance that may happen. Which I haven't worked on this much, but I also did get some of the gator foam that we've talked about before. I haven't worked with any of it yet, but I did get some. So for some future work we'll do, this is 1-inch gator foam. So for some future upcoming shows, we'll probably work with some gator foam, either build a module with it or something. Part of what got me excited about possibly doing a switching line at O scale was I had enough gator foam to build a few of those, but a few modules, but. Well, we'll come back strong and force next week. I'm sorry for the delay, or next month. I'm sorry for the delays that we had earlier this week and that we couldn't do the show as scheduled, especially with, talking about the travel toolkit I had. Again, remember that Joe's show is canceled for November. Won't be up next week. His show, Joe's Trader, will be up on the 11th of December instead of the 18th, but we'll have the calendar updated on the website for that right away. Look forward to Johnny's show next Thursday. Again, that schedule's changed to the same time as every other show. So 9 p.m. Eastern time, same Matt channel, same Matt time, whatever. So we'll see you guys then for next Thursday. Thanks for joining us for the Build Show tonight. I'll get my computer fixed up ahead of next Thursday. But you guys have a good evening. Thank you so much for joining Model Building Live, YouTube, or Model Builders for the Build Live Show.